Within this skyscraper high above the city, 12 terrorists have declared war.
They're about to be taught a lesson in the real use of power.
They're as brilliant
Because I am interested in the $640 million in your vault.
as they are ruthless.
But I'm telling you, you're just going to kill me. Okay. We do it the hard way.
Now, the last thing McClane wants is to be a hero.
Where's Howie?
The moment we've all been waiting for. Die Hard is officially here. Hey guys, I'm Kevin.
I'm Jake.
And this is Movie Matters. Obviously, we're here to talk about Die Hard, 1988 classic that is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's definitely my favorite 80s movie, and it's my favorite Christmas movie.
Some may say the greatest Christmas movie of all time, Kevin.
Yeah, it's 100% a Christmas movie.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement. It takes place on Christmas Eve. There's tons of Christmas-centric things about it. It's a Christmas movie.
100%.
However, it can be watched at any time throughout the year.
That's a great point. The rewatch value is huge on this movie. Doesn't have to be watched specifically on Christmas like A Christmas Story, our last episode. This movie can be enjoyed anytime.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny because this movie, like Gremlins, was released in July in the summer, and it's a Christmas movie, which is really funny. But it turned a healthy profit at the box office. It was made for $28 million, which is not a low amount of money. It was a big budget, and it made over $142 million at the worldwide box office, which made it a bona fide hit. Fox didn't think it would be that big of a hit, or a lot
There were very low expectations
Yes.
for this movie, which is hilarious considering what it turned out to be.
Yeah, I mean, it spawned a huge franchise, and basically it jump-started Bruce Willis's career as an action star.
Yeah, and Alan Rickman's career.
Yes. This movie's based on the novel Nothing Lasts Forever. I've not read it. Have you read it, Jake? I'd be curious.
No, I haven't either.
I'm shocked. That'd be an interesting read. But I
Yeah.
mean, they changed a lot of
I'm sure.
aspects from the book. Stephen D. Souza wrote this. He's a great screenwriter. Big fan of him. I love the writing in this movie. I love every aspect of this movie. I mean, it's a 5 out of 5 for me, hands down.
Yeah. Yep. Easily.
Yeah. But like I said, it jump-started Bruce Willis's career. He was mainly known for his comedic role on Moonlighting, the TV show from the 80s, of course. So when trailers hit for this, I mean, this trailer we just watched was the original trailer, which it was a great trailer. Definitely better than the earlier 80s movies we've reviewed for sure. But a lot of people...
Still not great.
Yeah. I mean, they're getting better.
They're getting better for sure.
Yeah.
They blew a couple of the big moments in the trailer,
Yeah.
like that it's a robbery and
Yeah.
a few other things. But yeah, like for whatever reason they seem like they could not get their shit together on trailers from spoiling like everything. So,
But I think they wanted to kind of do that, and I feel like people weren't. I don't even know if people even thought of spoilers back then. That'd be an interesting
yeah, I guess that's fair.
question to ask people from the 80s when these movies came out. It's like, it was just, I feel like the marketing back then was all just, hey, let's hype this up as much as we can because we want the biggest box office receipts possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people thought this was going to be a comedy because of Bruce Willis's background. For a brief time, even his face was removed from movie posters. And then once it was a hit, his face was added back. And again, he became a household name because it was his first leading role in a movie. Same for Alan Rickman, like you were saying. They wanted to find the perfect villain, and the producer and director attended a performance of the play Dangerous Liaisons, in which Alan Rickman was the main villain, and Joel Silver and John McTiernan, the director, they were like, "Oh yeah, this is Hans Gruber, hands down," which is awesome because he is such a great villain. He's written really well, and his acting is awesome in this.
Yeah, he's. We'll talk about it, but like he is the epitome of what I'll kind of dub the like new action villain that Die Hard kind of invents.
Yeah,
That's like no longer the finger clicking maniacal maniac that's trying to destroy the world. He's like a slick, suave, like charismatic bad guy. That like you almost forget at times that he's done some like horrible shit throughout the movie. Cause he's just such a like interesting and like charismatic is the best way to describe it.
yeah,
It's like there's times where I was watching it. We literally both of us just finished watching it. And there were times where I'm like, yeah, it's like interesting that like he really doesn't do anything quite that bad. And I'm like, wait, hold on. He blew a guy away right at the start.
Yeah.
He was willing to blow up like 100 people on a roof of a building. I'm like, maybe he is actually as bad as he's being portrayed to be. So,
but he does it with style.
but he does it with style.
God damn it, he does it with style.
But it is hard to remember at certain points in the movie that he's like ruthless, you know?
Yeah.
Because he's just such a. He's just so good at being a slick villain, I guess. Like
evil and maniacal and crazy, but also, yeah, just like so suave and like sophisticated and just, again, well written. All the characters have really good arcs in this movie, and they're all very well written, in my opinion. I was surprised, again, we've talked about this a lot in all of our other episodes, is runtime for movies, especially in the 80s. I totally forgot this movie was 2 hours and 12 minutes.
it doesn't feel like it, for sure.
Yeah, it flies by, but, again, in the 80s, and we stressed it a lot, the movies were supposed to be short and sweet and to the point. This movie, I wouldn't cut anything from it. It was perfect. Like you said, it flies by.
Yeah,
and
the pace is like it's a sprint through the entire movie. Like there's even in the scenes where there isn't like a gunfight happening, there's still very high stakes in almost every scene. So it keeps you engaged all the time, which is why it feels so short. Like whenever I watch it, I'm like, oh, Die Hard's probably like an hour and 20 minutes. Like I never remember that it's like as long as it is. But
same. Yeah, this film was nominated for 4 Oscars, including Best Editing. The editing is very well done, and like you said, the pacing's great. The stakes, like you said, are great. That's how I get invested in a movie is the characters, the stakes, the emotional stakes, and just the connectivity to your characters, and like wanting to care for them.
A note on editing. I remember I wrote a paper on this in high school.
Really?
Yeah. In our movie class in high school that we took.
Oh yeah.
I watched the director's commentary and everything, to like get notes and stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they mentioned that I couldn't find like documented somewhere, which was odd, but they claim it in the commentary, so I'm just going to say that it's true. But they said that Die Hard is, if not the first movie overall, it is definitely the first blockbuster to use the editing technique of cutting in the middle of camera motion. So typically before Die Hard, an edit cut would happen after a camera stops moving. The action can keep moving, but the camera had to be still. Where
Interesting.
in Die Hard, you'll know, and you can notice it too, and it's not super noticeable for like people like us that grew up watching this technique as commonplace. But if you watch it versus some of the other movies that we've watched recently, you can definitely tell that the camera will be moving and the scene will, the cut will happen. So it's pretty interesting and definitely adds to like the urgency and the pacing of the movie.
Yeah.
Is like we just said, it is nonstop and it's done extremely well.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we obviously have been waiting for this review for a long time. I mean, ever since we made the first episode of this podcast, this has been on the list, and obviously we've been waiting for the right time to do it, and now's the time since it's Christmas. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool facts about this movie. The money aspects of it are pretty interesting, both in the movie and literally how it was made. Like I said, about the budget and everything like that. Bruce Willis at the time received an unheard of $5 million fee, which was approved by Fox's president, so the studio. So like that was a huge thing where the stars are getting paid a lot more at this time. But it's also crazy because again, it was Bruce's first leading role.
He's basically a no-name actor. Yeah,
pretty much. He was known for comedy. And then I read a fun fact that according to inflation, the $640 million in 1988, which is obviously what they're trying to rob in the vault in the Nakatomi Plaza, is equivalent to like over $1 billion, like $1.5 billion today, which is insane. I mean, obviously that's a fuck ton of money and a reason to rob this place. And I feel like, again, going back to these characters being written well, their motives and like how they stage the whole robbery is awesome. It's genius.
Well, that's like the the classic line is when they start shoving all the bonds into like the bags in the vault, and Holly's sitting there and she's like, all this and you're just a common thief? And he says, no, Miss McClane, I'm an exceptional thief.
Yeah.
It's such a great line. And
it is.
Definitely conveys the like the lengths that he's willing to go to make this a successful robbery. Even posing as a terrorist organization in order to kind of divert everyone in like the directions that he wants things to go. And then, he says to, I think he says it to McClane at the end where he's like, if you steal $600, no one's going to come looking for you. But if you steal $600 million, everyone needs to think you're dead, basically.
Which
is also a great line.
Yes.
Which is why they wanted to blow up the roof and make it seem as if they were killed in the explosion.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's such a good plot. It's fairly sophisticated, I would say, especially for an 80s action movie.
Yeah.
And we'll get into how this differs from the typical 80s movies, in a little bit, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But like it is a very, very like highbrow kind of plot line, at least on the robbery end. So very, very interesting. Like I said, for this time period, especially.
Yeah, agreed. It's in, John McTiernan, who's the director, he's known for other crazy action movies like Predator, which we are going to do in the future for sure, which I love that movie. That's one of my favorite 80s movies as well. You can tell, obviously, it's a McTiernan movie because the sound effects for the guns are both the same in this and Predator. But this movie really, they wanted it to be different than the rest of the classic, 80s movies, action movies of that time. And that's why they, tried to go with a more average American, average Joe as the main character, and that's why they cast Bruce Willis. They wanted someone of, not some massive muscle-bound star like Arnold Schwarzenegger, even though he was offered to play the starring role, as well as Sylvester Stallone was offered to play the starring role. There's like so many behind-the-scenes stories of all these like crazy actors and even famous directors that have all passed on the film. But I mean, obviously it's perfect with Bruce Willis being the average Joe. They also wanted heavy improvisation for it to seem very realistic, which it does, and the improvisation is amazing in this because there are a lot of funny lines and funny scenes in this movie. Like, for example, the SWAT team member going through the rose bushes and getting pricked by it on the finger. And he's like, ah, Jesus. Like, that's like, I love that part because it's just so, like, over the top and hilarious.
Well, and the like, Asian guy on Hans's team, like, goes into, like, the candy to, like, take a Twix bar out while they're waiting to shoot a bunch of SWAT members. Like,
Yeah, he wanted to do that to add comedic effect, I read. And he's like, before he did it without asking, he literally asked McTiernan's permission to do it. He's like, can I do this? Like, I think it's going to add a great, comedic element.
It also adds to, like, a lot of what this movie is about is subverting the typical 80s action tropes. Yeah. And, like, this one flips everything on its head. Like you said, it takes the invincible superhero action star and makes it a normal guy.
Wrong place at the wrong time.
Wrong place at the wrong time. A guy put into a shitty situation, he's got to figure his way out of it. It takes the villain and humanizes him, but also takes it from some like world catastrophe down to like this granular robbery, which like should be fairly insignificant in like the grand scheme of things, And then the other big one is the like portrayal of authorities in this movie. Everyone that should normally be in charge of something is a complete idiot or like a total asshole. Yeah. And like it's clear that authority figures are the people that are like really almost the main villains of this movie, just constantly getting in McClane's way and like not enabling him to succeed. Which also is another interesting subversion is typically in an 80s action movie, it's one guy fighting, a whole bunch of people, where in Die Hard, McClane has both Al on the outside and Argyle that help him, throughout the movie. So he almost has like his own little team, which is different than the typical
not one lone man on a mission.
Of the 80s.
I mean, this movie basically invented the perfect action movie formula, especially for the 90s, and so many movies of the 90s copied this formula. And because it was successful, like, for example, Under Siege is Die Hard on a battleship, Sudden Death, Die Hard at a hockey stadium, Air Force One, Die Hard on a plane, same thing as Passenger 57, Con Air, like, all these are Die Hard-esque movies.
Speed.
And so, speaking of Speed, cool fact is the cinematographer of Die Hard, Jan de Bont, is the director of Speed. And Speed is Die Hard on a bus. Mm-hmm. And what's cool is Jan de Bont got stuck in an elevator on the set, and that literally gave him the idea for the beginning of Speed. Have you watched Speed recently?
Not recently.
Oh, dude, it's so awesome. I love that movie.
I remember it's a cool movie. But
I just
haven't
rewatched
watched it in a long time.
Yeah, I've rewatched it a handful of times, and I just recently rewatched it, and it's awesome. I love that movie. Yeah, they released it in 4K and it looks really good. Speaking
Nice.
of, I watched this in 4K because I own the 4K disc and it looks great.
Same. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to emphasize this enough that like this movie really set the tone for action movies moving forward. Like I can't think of an action movie after Die Hard that wasn't like a sequel to something that had already been made, where there's like an invincible action hero. Like almost all action movies after Die Hard have some kind of vulnerable central character.
Yeah, and what's funny is, same John McTiernan, the same director, he would later come out with in the 90s Last Action Hero, which is kind of the death of the action hero, and it stars Schwarzenegger, and it's kind of parodying all of his films. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting for sure, because this, and then we talked about it in Batman, where it's like you don't have to be a steroid using muscle bound fucking bodybuilder to fight crime.
Yeah.
I love the soundtrack of this movie. Michael Kamen did the score. We talked about it in our very first episode about Roadhouse. He did the score for that, and he used samples from Die Hard in Roadhouse, which is cool. I also loved that they used Beethoven's Ode to Joy as like the musical theme for Hans and his gang. The reason they wanted that is they're like, Michael Kamen was basically skeptical of using it because he's like, how can you like put Beethoven's amazing music to terrorists? And he's just like, it's a great contradiction, and he's like, I also like it because it's used in A Clockwork Orange from Stanley Kubrick and during like a lot of the mayhem, and Kamen was a big Kubrick fan, and so they're like, all right, let's do it.
Well,
really cool.
It adds to that like humanization factor for the bad guys too. That like, once you find out that they are just attempting a robbery, that in itself humanizes them, and then the Ode to Joy, really like. It helps you connect to them because that's their big like yes finally kind of moment. And like it's one of those things that like this movie's just so good at making you forget that these guys killed a whole bunch of people like 5 minutes ago.
But it also does a great job of you wanting John to just wreck the shit out of him.
Oh yeah for sure. And like the battle scene with Carl is like unbelievably epic. So good. His lines in that are phenomenal. I know one of your favorites is when he says you should have heard your brother squeal
like a pig when I broke his fucking neck. Yeah, it's one of my all-time favorite lines of the movie. But speaking of that, when he breaks his brother's neck, I mean, that's the first fight scene in the movie between Bruce and his brother, Carl's brother. That scene is awesome. It's intense, and you can also really tell that Bruce Willis did a lot of his own stunts because it's really him going through the wall and getting in a headlock and stuff like that, and you could just tell that he put a lot of effort into making the movie realistic. And again, kind of that every man getting his ass kicked but still kicking ass is really pronounced in this movie.
Well, that's one of the other things that I think really drives home that like everyman kind of vibe is like he does a lot of crazy shit in this movie. However, if this were a typical 80s action movie, he would do it looking like a total badass and like walking away from explosions. Where like every time he's going to do something fucking nuts, he questions himself.
Yes.
He's like, this is the dumbest idea I've ever had.
Yeah.
And it works so well.
It does.
like probably one of my favorite ones is when he throws the C4 down the elevator shaft and he's watching the explosion come up and he's like, oh shit. Like,
Yeah.
jump runs away.
Yeah.
You know, it's like typically you'd have Schwarzenegger like kick that thing down and like just turn around and walk away and the fire would like blow
Yeah.
out around him and be like, wow, cool, badass. But like, no, McClane's like sitting there watching it and like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
it's so great.
I love that, especially because like right when he's putting the like C4 together, and he just like keeps putting like the sticks into it, and he's like, "Fuck it,"
Yeah.
just like
Fuck.
I don't know what I'm doing, but fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so good. Yeah, and like his improvisation and his lines, like reacting to all this, like you're saying, like is just so good, and him writing on the guy's shirt saying, now I have a machine gun, ho ho ho, is awesome. And then like he's trying to call to the police on the radio and he's like, no fucking shit, lady, does it sound like I'm ordering a pizza? Like,
Yeah.
it's so good. And I was thinking about it, like all the movies we've done before this, like there are some quotable lines in a lot of these movies we've watched, but like I feel like this movie, maybe it's just because we love it so much.
So many.
Like,
so
yeah,
many.
there's like, if you ever,
There's at least 4 core classics.
oh yeah, easily, I'd say even more.
Welcome to the Party, Pal. Come out to the coast. We'll get together, have a few laughs.
Yep. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. And I'm missing one.
What you said? Welcome to the party, pal. Right?
I said, welcome to the Party, Pal.
Now I know what a TV dinner feels like. I mean, it's right after.
That's a good one, too.
Yeah. I mean, they're all good. Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
quotable.
Yeah, I mean, even the, like, hey, he's such a dick, too. Like,
Yeah.
when Han, it is the first time that him and Hans are talking on the radio, and Han says, like, oh, you're just one of those Americans with a bankrupt culture of watching Rambo and John Wayne movies as a kid. And he's like, I was always partial to Roy Rogers. You know, like,
Yeah.
he's just such a dick.
Yeah.
Which I did notice watching it today that they do reference Stallone and Arnold in this movie.
Yes.
Quite explicitly, which
Yeah.
I think is something that I never thought about in like a critical way until watching it tonight, and I was like, that's actually super interesting because of everything we've already talked about. You know, like McClane being like the antithesis of those two guys.
Yeah. See, when you watch and listen to our podcast and watch these movies, you have a different perspective on these movies. And it's cool because, I mean, like, I love that. I love, watching movies, and obviously I've seen Die Hard a million times, and it's cool to see it in a different way or find something new with a new, viewing. I love that. That just makes the movie even more enjoyable and rewatchable.
Yeah.
But yeah, this going back to like the stakes and like the action sequences are so good. The ventilation shaft scene where he's using the strap of the gun to, go down the ventilation shaft. It was actually a mistake by the stunt man who was supposed to grab the first vent and missed, and they cut away and have him grab the second vent, which is super cool.
That's neat.
Yeah.
But that scene is intense.
Yeah.
Because like you're sitting there watching the gun, flexing at the retractable stock, and you're actually watching the plastic like pull apart, like as it's like starting to go. I don't know if you could see that in 1988 or whenever it came out, but you can see it in 4K. But it's just another one of those things where like the pacing is just so good and the stakes are so high in like every shot of the movie. At least when the action starts and Gruber's team, move in. But like, yeah, I mean, it's just blistering.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, we're gonna say that 100 times during this episode. It's just the movie's amazing. It's cool because, whenever I wear like a wife beater or a tank top, I usually wear one to bed every now and then. It's very Die Hard vibes. The costume department had 17 undershirts in various stages of degradation for Bruce Willis, which is cool. I mean, that he just gets throughout the movie, he just gets sweatier, bloodier, and dirtier. And it's cool.
Yeah, by the end of the movie, he's just covered in blood and sweat and dirt.
Yeah, and I always love how he gets Holly, like, blood all over Holly's face when he's, like, trying to save her. And I always see that, and it makes me laugh.
Mm-hmm.
But there's the cool scene where John McClane is, like, under the table, and he's getting, kind of chased by this one terrorist who's on top of the table shooting at him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, now you're out of table. And, like, when you have the chance to kill someone, you kill someone. And he shoots him, and he's like, thanks for advice. So these guns were real in the movie, but they used blanks, of course. Mm-hmm. And with Bruce Willis under that table, he was really close to the gun, and he suffered major hearing damage when he was shooting through the table, which is crazy. Just like he literally lost 2/3 of hearing in his left ear. So. And apparently, because of that, he wore hearing aids for years, and I didn't know that. Like,
yeah, I didn't know that either.
I had no idea, which is crazy.
Yeah, but we got to talk about the big behind the scenes thing.
Which one?
So the final scene.
Oh,
where
yes,
Alan Rickman or Hans Gruber is dangling out the window, holding on to Holly's watch, and McClane unclasps it, and Hans falls to his death, off the building. So the reason Alan Rickman looks completely horrified is because they actually dropped him like 30 feet without telling him that he was going to go during filming.
Yeah.
So they had done, I think they had done a couple takes of it, like before the one that's in the movie. And they were like re-hoisting him back up, and McTiernan was like, we're just gonna fucking drop him. So like he gets up to the top, and they just like unclipped it on him. And like, so his reaction is 100% real in that, to falling like, a good amount of feet. So that's pretty great too.
Yeah, he was apparently really dropped 40 feet onto an airbag, which is crazy. And they were supposed to let him go at 3 on the count of 3, but they let him go at the count of 2. So he was just like, he's anticipating 3, and then oh fuck, he goes on 2, which is awesome. And again, he did his own stunt, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. It's funny too because I read that the first day of shooting for Rickman, he filmed the scene where Hans runs into John, and he made a jump off of the ledge of about it was 3 feet tall, this ledge, and he injured himself. He's on a 3-foot ledge, and damaged his knee, fucked up his knee, and was told by a doctor not to put any weight on it. So he was using crutches for a week. And then for the rest of that scene where John and Hans first meet each other in person, you can't see it, but he's standing on one leg and has a leg brace under his pants, which is hilarious.
Well, a lot of that scene too, isn't he leaning against the wall or something? So
yeah. Just imagine your first day, your first big movie, and the first scene you just fuck up and twist your ankle or fuck your knee up, that would suck.
Which that scene, by the way, we should talk about because that scene's awesome.
Yeah, Bruce Willis and Alan Rickman, that was completely unrehearsed, and it created a better spontaneity between them. And it's super unusual for films of this time, especially action movies, for the hero and villain to never get in a fist fight and it's supposed to be a battle of wits, like we were talking about earlier, because they never fight ever.
Right. Yeah. That's the closest I think they ever get in the entire movie, because even when he shoots him at the end, he's like 10, 15 feet away.
Yeah.
Which is again another subversion of that action trope of like the big fist fight at the end, which we actually talked about in Lethal Weapon, which is a like 10-minute
Yeah.
fist fight at the end of the movie.
Yeah, definitely long, but also cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love how they make the villain not a fucking dumbass either. Like, he's intelligent. Like, he notices things where he, that scene between John and Hans, he puts on an American accent and looks, at the board and sees that Billy Clay is on there. And he also notices that John McClane is barefoot, and that's why he tells his gang to shoot the glass when they finally all run into each other. Yeah.
Even in the first time that he's like negotiates with Holly, she looks at the picture of her and John and the kids that's face down on the desk, and he catches that. And he turns around to look at what she was looking at, but then something distracts him, and he looks away. So yeah, just like he's an incredibly formidable opponent, which is again like not typical of the 80s. Usually they're like physically comparable to the star, and usually there's some kind of like physical conflict that's going to happen in the movie where this is all about trying to outsmart one another, and like what's funny is I remember in like the commentary, I think it was McTiernan said that like he almost wanted this movie from the perspective of Hans and his team to be like a horror movie for them.
Interesting.
Because they're just being picked off like one by one. That's by cool. This like mystery person in the building, which like it really is like there's it's very different from the like head on kind of frontal assault that like most 80s action movies are, where McClane is like crawling around in vents and shit trying to avoid detection, and it's almost more of like a survival movie than like a typical action movie. But again, like all of these tropes have been adopted like a million times over since then. So it's like for people our age, it's hard to conceive of these things being new. Yeah. When it came out. Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting because I feel like they haven't done this type of formula in a while. Maybe I'm wrong, but like, I don't know. It's funny because we keep talking about it in certain movies and certain genres where they, again, I mean, I stress it all the time and I say it all the time, is they don't make them like they used to. And it'd be cool to see a Die Hard-esque movie now. Yeah. And like, this podcast really kind of inspires me, and like watching all these movies, it really makes me want to write a movie that's kind of very 80s thriller in vein. And I think that'd be cool. And that's, I don't know, it's something I'll maybe do, but like, what the world really needs is a slapstick comedy.
Yeah. Yeah, there are no good comedies anymore. It's very disappointing.
We need another Airplane.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, again, going back to character arcs, they're really good. I love Al Powell and his arc and how he it's again ode to the great dialogue and great writing where he's, McClane asks him, like, you got, why aren't you out there, working the streets?
He asks him if he's flat-footed.
Yes, thank you. That's what I was looking for. And he's like, I shot a kid, which is terrible. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'll never, raise my gun at anyone again. But in the end, he does, and he kills who we think is already dead, Carl. Mm-hmm. And it's a great arc of redemption. And the movie is a lot about redemption because it's about John basically making up with his wife. And what's funny is the Jeb Stewart, one of the writers, was given the task of adapting the book Nothing Lasts Forever, and he had difficulty with the screenplay and kind of had writer's block until one near-death experience while driving at night in L.A. He had a fight with his wife, so he's just like, I'm just going to go and drive. And he was driving behind a refrigerator truck, like a truck carrying refrigerators. And one of the fridges fell out of the truck. And because he was so distracted, he was too late to notice how all the cars had quickly dodged this fridge. And he smashed right into it. But luckily, the box was empty. So it was just a cardboard box. And then, like, him having that near-death experience, he basically went home and apologized to his wife, and that inspired him to give the motivations for John and Holly's character, that they want to reunite with each other after having a fight and going through this crazy terrorist ordeal and being held hostage, and John trying to fight his way through all of them. It's, again, great stakes, great emotional connection, and you really root for the hero in this one.
Yeah, I was reading through some like notes on the movie, and particularly on like themes, and a couple critics at the time had noted that the two big redemption arcs are what you stated, John McClane and his wife trying to fix their relationship and reconcile, and then Al Powell's guilt over shooting a kid while on the job, and both of them actually overcome these challenges through violence. It's kind of an interesting way to drive towards that ultimate completion of their character arcs. Because when McClane gets to the party, him and his wife are on like decent terms. She's thinking that he's gonna stay with them for the holidays and like all this stuff, and he blows it totally. So he's got to make up for it, and he does by saving the day. Then obviously Powell overcomes his fear of doing his duty, I guess. Is like
using his service weapon.
Yeah, and again saving everyone. But yeah, it's just funny because they're murdering people.
Yeah, but I'd say it's also a common trope of that, like, trauma binds people together. And violence kind of bonds people together. Mm-hmm. When people are in stressful situations or dangerous situations and they survive together, that breeds bonds that are hard to sever. No pun intended. It's great character arcs, and it ratchets up the tension because you care for these characters. Especially the revelation when Hans finds out that Holly is in fact married to John McClane, and it's cool. It's great writing because she goes by Holly Gennaro, and not Holly McClane. So it's just, again, it's brilliantly written.
Well, and the only reason he really picks up on it is because he sees her reaction to her daughter on TV.
Yeah.
And he looks at the TV and looks at her and then looks back at the picture that he noticed from earlier and flips it up, and McClane's in the picture.
Yeah, ties really well.
You know, and again, that wouldn't have mattered had he not come face to face with McClane, you know, earlier in the movie. So yeah, it just really well crafted writing and storylines. That again, like we've talked about how we really like those like tie up moments. And that's like a perfect one.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I'm a huge fan of that, at how things get tied up, loose ends get tied up. It's great writing. I think a great, like, and this ties to comedy too, in my opinion, is I love when something comes for full circle. And I think a great comedian, their first joke ties into their last joke. I think that's an amazing way to do comedy, especially for like a stand-up routine. And like, again, it's the writing is very good in this movie. Yeah, I can't stress that enough. Especially like the culmination at the end of everything, Al meeting up with John at the end and them like literally not even saying anything and just laughing and hugging is awesome. Yeah. And then, you know, Holly punching Thornburg, the reporter that shows their kids on TV, is great. It's just all is happy at the end. I think it's, again, it a good point that I thought of with this movie, and I didn't notice it on all my other viewings, is in the beginning, and I don't know exactly what Argyle says, but he's like basically like, hey, you're going to make up with your wife and you're going to ride off into the sunset. And he says that in the beginning of the movie, and that happens at the end of the movie. Yep. You know, the music comes up and you walk away happy with your wife. He says something like that, and that's exactly what happens, which is cool. Again, it's tying your first point into your last point, and that's very good writing, if you ask me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I say 100%. It's a Christmas movie. I highly recommend it to people. And I was also thinking, like, if you've never seen this movie, I feel like it'd be awesome to watch it for the first time, or to be there if you've seen it and you're showing a friend or a significant other or anyone and they've never seen it and you've seen it. I feel like just watching them watch it for the first time would be awesome.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, I can't wait to watch it with my kids because
I was thinking about that too. I was thinking about that. Like,
it'll be a blast. That and Star Wars. I can't wait to watch 100%. Star Wars.
100%.
I can't wait for the I Am Your Father.
Hey, that's an 80s movie.
It is, yeah.
The second and third one.
Yeah, we should cheat and do all three, but
I'd be okay with that. Yeah, I think we'll eventually. I want to do that. I know we've talked about it, and I'd be curious if anyone else has thoughts on this. Is like doing a marathon, if you will, of watching the first and second, like Airplane. We haven't done Airplane yet. It'd be cool to do Airplane 1 and Airplane 2 and do it all in one episode.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun, and we should do that with like Back to the Future, maybe, even though those movies are really long. Like we'd have a lot to say. That'd be a very long episode. Maybe we'll do like a special for that one.
Yeah. Well, those ones I think warrant individual episodes.
I agree.
Because they're all very, very well done in their own right.
I'm excited for that.
One of the only trilogies where each movie is about equally as good as the others.
I'd agree.
I would say.
Now, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the sequels to Die Hard.
Die Hard?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this because I figured you were going to ask. Die Hard 2, fine.
It's good.
That's about it. I will say him throwing his lighter on the leaking gas tank, it's doing the yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, is great. Yeah. Blows the plane up. That's pretty awesome.
I mean, the icicle in the eye of one of the guys. There's a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah. And but like, I feel like it's just not as compelling of
a story,
a villain and a story, and like, pissed off military guys wasn't anything new, you know.
Yeah.
It's just like it was fine.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoy it. It's fun, but it's not
Third
amazing.
one, Die Hard with a Vengeance, absolutely awesome. I
Yes.
know. I think me and you might have watched that multiple times throughout our friendship.
Yeah.
'Cause it's just so good.
It is great.
The return of the Gruber family.
Yep.
Awesome movie. And where Die Hard 2 takes place in the DC airport?
Great question. I mean, it's snowing the whole time, so it's definitely in a cold location.
I don't.
I haven't seen
for
Die
some
Hard 2
reason,
in a while.
Yeah, for some reason, I think it's Washington D.C. and I don't know why.
You might be right.
But Die Hard with a Vengeance is in New York.
Yep. Which is great. Yeah, we love that one.
Yeah, and like the third one is great because he's like the most washed up piece of shit in that movie.
Yeah, he's just
and,
hung over the whole movie.
Yeah, and just gets thrown into this like complete shitstorm. Where like what I think is cool about the third one is that it's actually he is the target of that movie.
Yes.
That's not necessarily a wrong time, wrong place. He's cast into it by the villain on purpose, which I think is why that movie's so successful as a sequel, particularly.
Yeah.
But then Live Free or Die Hard, I think both of us are big fans of.
I love that movie. I feel like a lot of people hate it. I love it. I thought it was great.
I love it too. He kills a helicopter with a car.
Yeah. The only thing I don't like about it is that it was PG-13 when it came out, but there is an unrated cut, and the unrated cut is fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. And I did verify while we were talking, Die Hard 2 is Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So you were correct.
But I can't remember why he's there.
I don't either.
I thought he gets transferred to DC, and that's why he's there. And I think in the second one he's flying to LA again to see his kids.
I'll have to watch it, or we'll have to watch it.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, Live Free or Die Hard is awesome.
Yep.
The end scene is just so good.
Yes. The whole movie's awesome. I really love that movie. And you know, that was the first Die Hard movie when we were of age that we could see in theaters.
Yeah.
So we definitely saw it in theaters. So that was fun. Now, A Good Day to Die Hard.
Doesn't count. It's not canon.
Have you still not seen it?
I watched the first 10 minutes and I was like, I can't watch this.
It is awful.
Yeah.
I should watch it again. I should give it another shot, but I just remember him saying he's on vacation about 100 times in the movie, and like it was over the top, and it wasn't good. I saw that one in theaters when it came out, and I was very disappointed and didn't think it was that good.
We were like really excited for it too. So.
Oh yeah, I was hugely disappointed for it. There were talks of them doing a new one it was like called Die Hard Year One, where it was going to be a prequel, but also like a sequel, where they were going to have a young John McClane in New York, and then they were going to have Bruce Willis as an older, like retired John McClane, which would have been cool. It's unfortunate now that won't get made because Bruce Willis has asphyxia, which is sad.
Yeah.
It's also sad that Bruce Willis has, I don't want to speak ill of him just because, like, he's done a lot of direct to, like, DVD type movies of the last, like, 10 years. And that has always been disappointing because he's one of my favorite action stars of the, late 80s, early 90s especially.
Yeah. I'd say, did you see Death Wish?
I did. I liked it.
I haven't seen it, but
it's good.
That's probably the last like big movie that he did.
I think so.
excluding A Good Day to Die Hard.
Like, and when we say big, we mean big, like action-oriented role, because he's obviously been in some dramatic roles with like Wes Anderson films and stuff like that. But
The Sixth Sense and
this is definitely that was one of his last action roles that I feel like he's done. Yeah, I mean, it's sad that he's no longer going to be making these movies, so this movie just becomes even more of a national treasure, if you ask me.
Which, the other movie that you introduced me to that Bruce Willis is unbelievably good in is Unbreakable.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That movie
There's
is
so many
phenomenal.
Yeah.
I watched it again over the summer for the first time since I think we watched it together. And like, my God, that movie is good.
So good.
I feel like it flew under the radar quite a bit. Because that was like well before superhero movies were like going totally fucking bananas.
Yeah.
And like, you know, they have their little M. Night Shyamalan universe with the 3 movies.
I didn't like
Split
and Split's
Glass.
Cool. Glass
But
sucked.
I didn't watch Split or Glass.
Split's cool, and I just remember being in the theater for that one and hearing the theme to Unbreakable and being like, I literally turned to my friend in the theater and be like, dude, this is the theme to Unbreakable. And then he's like, God, I hate you. I'm like, why? And then all of a sudden Bruce Willis shows up. And I was like, oh, fuck. And he's like, I knew Bruce Willis was in this movie. He's like, but I didn't know why. And then you said it.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's a great actor, and this is definitely a movie that, you know, it's one of those movies you got to watch before you die for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We finally got to it, and hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we can't wait for more. And yeah. Happy Christmas. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Yeah. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. We'll be taking next week off, but then we're starting the year off strong. Literally. So next up on the list is so January is going to be the dueling of Schwarzenegger and Stallone.
Yes.
So we're going to be switching off between some Schwarzenegger and Stallone movies. Then at the end of January, we'll decide who's better.
Yes. Whole reason we're going to do that.
Maybe not. I don't know.
No, I think we should. The whole reason we're going to do that is because it's, you know, everyone's New Year's resolution is to get in shape or get jacked. And
some motivation.
Yeah, some motivation. Why not watch an Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone movie where they're fucking jacked out of their minds, killing millions of people? Like, literally.
We'll watch Predator, and you'll get to watch that arm shake scene.
Yes. Yeah. I sent Jake a video of this sizzle reel of all this Arnold Schwarzenegger collection. I'm like, we have to show this. So get ready. We can't wait. And yeah, like we said, we'll take a week off. So hope everyone has a good holiday.
Yeah, we'll see you in January with Commando.
Yeah.
That'll kick off 2024.
Crazy. Thanks, guys.
Yep. See ya.